Hi everyone, today we're working on my 17 Tundra. I will go over how to do an oil change and also get to the meat of this video for changing out the plastic oil filter housing cap over to aluminum. The process in my video may differ slightly from yours potentially insofar as my truck is lifted, so I do not have a skid plate in the front to remove and reinstall. Also, I will not be jacking up the vehicle. I can easily slide underneath. It's probably the only benefit of having a lifted vehicle. Anyway, let's get to it. So here's some of the equipment and supplies necessary to do the job. I have two oil pans here. You can probably get away with just using the larger one. I prefer to have two just because the oil pan as well as the oil filter housing is fairly far apart and I like to let things drain. Two 5-liter jugs of OW20 or 5W20, whichever you prefer. A new oil filter. I have chosen the Wix. Here's your part number. Oil pan crush washer, oil filter housing cap, of course, that we're changing. There's your part number as well. Oil filter housing socket, a roll of blue shop towels, some PPE, which I've got some blue nitrile gloves as well as some safety glasses. If you live in the Pacific Northwest, I really suggest some safety glasses. If you've ever taken a skid plate down with a bunch of sand in it, it always seems to find your eyes. Got an assortment of flathead screwdrivers, 3/8 drive ratchet as well as an extension. During this job sometimes things are torqued extremely tight or you just need a bit more leverage. Don't be afraid to break out the 1/2 inch or something with a bit of a longer handle on it. But you'll need a 14mm socket, that's for the oil pan. If you're taking off your skid plate, you'll need a 10 and a 12 potentially. I have a 3/8 drive torque wrench. This is optional, but if you're new to doing stuff like this, I would highly suggest getting a torque wrench. One of the main reasons for a lot of these plastic caps cracking is because they're over torqued. Also have a pick here. This is just to help take off the O-rings. Don't really need that, but I find it helpful. Kind of brake clean to keep things clean up and whatever else at the end. And a 1/4 inch drive impact driver. I know a lot of people are probably going to give me some flack for this, but I will show you where this tool may come in handy, but it's definitely optional. So the first thing, you want to take your truck out, get it warmed up, take it around the block, whatever you got to do for 5-10 minutes. Come back in your garage, get it all set up. Remove your oil filler cap. This will just help the oil drain out of the pan instead of it just kind of glugging out. Next thing, underneath the vehicle, you want to get your oil pan set up. The oil drain plug is on the passenger side of the vehicle. So here's your eccentric bolt, and just behind there and up, you can see the 14mm drain plug. Now you're going to want to undo that and let the oil drain out. Back under the vehicle, you can see how the two oil pans come in handy. I can let the oil pan drain, and now I can get to work on the oil filter housing. So with Toyota, they have a little relief valve on the bottom of the oil filter housing cap, so you can actually drain it out versus having to take the whole thing off as a unit and just get absolutely showered. So this is where most of the time you'd use your 3/8 drive, and you would just insert it into the bottom here, square to square, and loosen it off. Sometimes lube techs put this on extremely tight and you're not able to get it off, and the whole housing spins as a unit. This is where you can employ your 1/4 inch drive impact with 3/8 drive adapter. So you're only loosening this off, you're not tightening it down, so just relax. Also, if you do happen to damage the threads on this plastic oil filter housing, it's not really the end of the world. You're going to be replacing with the aluminum one anyway. But when you go back to torque this down to proper spec, like you will be at the end of this video, you will have no problem with this in future. This is what it looks like with the little cap removed, along with the spigot inserted to drain off the oil filter. After this, you will use your cap socket here, put that on after you take the spigot out, put this on and loosen off your housing. There's also a little tang here. You may need to use your finger or possibly one of the screwdrivers just to push this back. It's just so this doesn't back all the way off and vibrate loose when you're driving. It's just a safety feature, but just pull this back a little bit just to clear the little tangs and loosen this all the way off and drop off your filter. Back of the workbench or hood on my car. Here we have your oil filter housing. As you can see, the difference between the new and the old. The new one, the internal cone is much shorter, so we're going to have to swap it over from the old one. Also, you want to remove your old drain plug gasket and put on a new one. This cap, the oil filter housing cap, you're going to have to reuse from your old one to put on your new one. You also have your new O-rings here from your new oil filter. The torque specs for these are as follows. 30 foot-pounds for the oil plug, 18 for the filter housing, and 9 for the filter plug. Also, with the instructions that come with your Brix filter, they do have some torque specs here if you are really lost and can't remember. For switching out the internal cones, looking down the inside here, you'll see there are two tangs, one here and one here. You're going to have to bend these up in order to get past these other two internal clips. Once you bend them up, you can turn this and I'll get back to you with what it looks like underneath. With the new and the old oil filter housing cap side by side, as you can see with the internal cone, the tangs are now bent up. To release the cone, because of the spring load, you have to push down and twist. That's all there's to it. Now you have your old oil filter housing cone installed into your new cap. Now you press your tabs back down into place, locking the cone into place. You now can install your new oil filter, slide it over top of the cone, install your new O-rings. This is where some people get tripped up. They install the O-ring in the wrong area, so you want to install it in the lower machine surface here, as opposed to just below the threads. I've never put it in the other location here, but I'm sure it could lead to leaks. The other thing in addition with these new oil filter housing caps versus the old, as you can see, the new has only two tangs and the old has the same two tangs in addition with two others. I think this is probably why sometimes these tangs get snapped off, especially when people are using these oil filter housing caps. If you look here, there's 3 and 1, and if you put these on the wrong way, it will work, but it won't engage properly. You want it to engage fully and all the way seated to engage not only the tangs but also the ribbed portion around the top of the cap when you're undoing or loosening your oil filter housing cap. Back onto the vehicle, I now have my new oil filter housing cap reinstalled. Be sure to lube up both of these O-rings with a thin light coat of oil prior to installation to prevent binding and tearing of the O-rings and potentially leading to leaks. Once you've completed that, as well as reinstalled your oil pan drain plug, fill up your truck with oil, fire it up, and check for leaks. Once you've set proper oil level, you've run the truck and checked for leaks, everything's good, you're all good to go, you're finished your project. If you have any questions, please comment below. Thanks for watching.